Good evening, everyone. As you can see, it's 1922 hours here in Toronto, so 20 after 7. And I thought I'd do some poking around on the Sangean on the 40-meter handband. So you can see I'm sitting here at 7,000. I've had a couple of comments, and one recently about a single sideband on this radio, which is a bit weird and obviously not to everybody's taste, because it's probably the most divisive thing in terms of people looking at this radio. I don't find it problematic myself, but this is not something I do all that often. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look around the 40-meter handband and let's see what kind of activity there is out there tonight. So just to give you some idea of what it sounds like in AM. Right, and really most of this is going to be lower sideband, continuous wave stuff. Now this is where some people would like to have a narrower bandwidth filter than this on it, so that they could, listen to continuous wave stuff without having to tune out. But I don't know Morris, so it's not really. Every once in a while I figure I ought to, this must be close, that's strong. Every once in a while I figure I ought to, because my father was a ham when he was a teenager in the 60s, but I don't know, I'm not that interested. But it is fun to be able to hear it. So, anyway. So we get into digital mode stuff of various sorts. I did make an attempt to learn some of these at one point, but I must say it's mostly forgotten. Okay, now we're into what would be the end of the 40-meter broadcast band, but here in North America there's no broadcast in here. What we are going to end up with is voice. And we'll turn up
you may have heard, maybe not, but we're getting a big snowstorm up here in the Midwest. It's supposed to dump about.
This is our news here in Toronto as well.
Between now and Thursday, so it's snowing right now, so we're getting hunkered down. We thought it was
not snowing in Toronto yet, or I don't think.
We're starting to get clear, and now we're going to.
So that's the volume all the way down. Yeah, his buddy there's a little weaker. Maybe coming in from the southern states. But you see why my interpretation of this is that it doesn't have any auto gain.
That's really kind of cool. You got a great signal. Of course, you might be.
See if there's anyone else up here. system. I'll turn that down a little bit. It's quite noisy tonight, actually. No. Oh. So what you do is you put it in appropriate sideband mode. So we're in lower sideband here. And then in practice you switch between sort of the kilohertz, and then you go down to tenths, but it's actually set, it's doing hundredths, and you can set what you're not seeing. Anyway, and so that's how in practice you tune with it. It works like most other DSP-based single sideband radios. The other radio that I use fairly often, the Tecsun PL330, works more or less the same way. Anyway, so we're now getting up into the broadcast band. So we can probably, we'll turn it down a bit, take it out of the single sideband. Radio Marty, I think. Anyway, you'll see that as far as the radio is concerned, we're actually out of the 41 meter broadcast band by the time we actually get to broadcast. It just goes to show how the North American 40 meter band range is a bit messed up compared to the sort of worldwide arrangement. So you get some idea of how this radio works in single sideband. As I say, I'm far from an expert at using it, although I played around with it quite a bit. Hi everyone. So after playing with the Sangean on single sideband mode, I thought I would do the same thing here with the PL330, since that's the radio I tend to compare with it. I'm going to set the bandwidth at 3 kilohertz, which is where I tend to set it on this radio. We're going to start at 7 megahertz, 7,000 kilohertz, and see where that takes us. I want to set the step to something more reasonable. I did cruise through here with the sync on before, and it works really well for grabbing continuous wave signals. So, some more. Now you could, because this has adjustable bandwidth, you could close it down a bit, right, which would have some advantage here where to distinguish the individual signals compared to the Sangean 909X2, which I used earlier. Couldn't be clearer than that, though. I don't do Morse, so I have no idea what it is. But anyway, so you can see all the continuous wave activity, quite a bit. And then some digital stuff. Keep going up. And I should note that I've opened up the bandwidth all the way. see if we can find some voice. Oh. Well, whatever it was in there. Excuse me. So we can change the step. The Sangean is doing the same thing, you just can't see the last digit. Yeah, I prefer the bandwidth down a little bit, which I think is pretty close to what the Sangean does. But anyway, I won't go through any more. But I think you can see that I think the PL330's performance on sideband is better than the Sangean 909X2, but not enough to really matter to me, who uses it fairly rarely. However, I think if you were primarily interested in sideband stuff, I would probably consider a different receiver than the Sangean 909X2, because you might want some of the other settings that are available on some of the, like the 330 and the PL990 would be the, excuse me, the very expensive version of the 330. So, you know, those might be radios to consider for that purpose. For my occasional interest in sideband stuff, I find the performance of the 909X2 to be really good. I find I very rarely change the bandwidth on here out of 3, which sounds to me a lot like what the Sangean setting is. I just leave it there. And in fact, I do the same thing on AM. I find with both this radio and the Sangean, you find a setting that works for you for shortwave, and you just use it. And that's what I tend to do. Anyway, hope that's helpful. Just comparing a couple of radios that I have, and hope that's useful information for people thinking about making purchases or playing with equipment that they already own. Have a good evening.